Britain is calling on the EU to ease its tight regulations on genetically modified food.
There should be no subsidy. There should be no
GM farming is actually safer than alternatives. The government wants the widespread caution towards GM agriculture to be reassessed. Prime Minister has stopped short of saying he'd eat such products himself. So let's take a look at why biotech foods are so controversial. GM crops such as corn and rice spread through the food chain via cows and end up in our daily of freedom. 90% of all biotech seeds are owned by the American multinational Monsanto.
Genetically modified organisms, or GMOs, have been controversial since their creation. A GM organism is one that has had its genetics altered through mutation, insertion, or deletion of genes.
GMO a go-go.
Hey kid, what's up? Do you hate having to eat those healthy vegetables? Is nutrition getting you down? Well, cheer up! Help's on the way. Say hello to GMO, genetically modified organisms. You can eat them all day. Not only will mealtimes be extra delicious, they'll also contain oodles and oodles of insect genes and fish genes. Just think of all that extra yummy goodness. But that's not all. We're irradiating everything you eat, so you'll never have to absorb a single nasty nutrient ever again. And don't forget about pesticides, plenty of those. Yes, sir. Like to know more? Well, let's take a look.
Why, when you say kids' right to know, why do you feel it's important? I mean, this is obviously an issue that's a political hot button, right? It's a fight in places like Europe, keeping the foods out of places, labeling them in America. It's all over the place. Why do kids in particular, in your view, need to have an awareness of this?
For sure. I believe it's our future, after all. I mean, if you're going to do something to our food, we should definitely know about it. And we're the ones who might have to live with these consequences. So why not be informed about it?
David Suzuki joins me in the studio. I want to ask you first, you've described our consumption of genetically modified food as a massive experiment. That's what science is about, it's experiments. What's your primary concern about this one?
Well, the point I make is that we have no idea what the long-term consequences of these genetic manipulations will be on the public. There is no way that our health authorities can test all possible combinations and permutations over a large enough population over a long enough period to be able to say with a surety that they're harmless. So basically, by slipping it into our food without our knowledge, without any indication that there are genetically modified organisms in our food, we are now unwittingly part of a massive experiment. Over years, as thousands and thousands of people continue to consume this, we will provide the data which will allow us ultimately to conclude whether or not there's any danger.
If you live in the United States, you almost certainly consume a genetically modified organism or GMO on a daily basis. Maybe it's the sugar beets that were used to make the sugar in the cookie you're eating, or the mayo on the sandwich made from GM soybeans, and yesterday's hamburger, I can almost guarantee it was produced by a cow that ate GM corn. Before long, we'll be eating entire genetically modified animals. In 2012, the FDA gave its okay for a new kind of Atlantic salmon engineered to have higher levels of growth hormone using the genes of Pacific salmon and an eel-like fish called the ocean pout. It's the first GM animal to be approved for human consumption. GMOs are everywhere, pretty much literally. 95% of sugar beets, 88% of corn, and 94% of soybeans grown in the US contain traits like being insect resistant or herbicide resistant that were engineered into them. Still, creating GMOs for food is incredibly expensive and time consuming, and their impacts on the environment and on human health are largely unknown. So some countries, most recently Peru and Russia, have banned their import and use because people tend to not like unknowns, especially if you're eating them.
Supposed to use strong words, but these might be the basis for real ecological and health catastrophes. That's a fact.
Genetically modified organisms, or genetically modified food, from the science field called biotechnology, came out of a movement that began in the 1990s called the Gene Revolution. It is a hugely funded movement that aimed to create and distribute food that had its very genetic structure changed, supposedly to be more efficient. The real reason, of course, is for the food to be used as a weapon. Like Henry Kissinger in the early 1970s told one reporter, "If you control oil, you control nations. If you control food, you control people. If you control food, you control people. If you control food, you control people."